The worst thing you can do is rush to make an investment before the year end just to save money on taxes. Why? Because when you look at what you'll pay in taxes or you'll save in taxes or whatever, compare that to the property losing money every single month because you made a bad investment. I would rather you pay taxes than have a property that's losing $2,000 a month because you didn't take the time to do the due diligence. You just kind of rushed to go and buy. I've seen that happen personally to so many people that they buy a property, they say 50 grand, awesome, but the property loses $3,000 a month. They're right back in the same spot 14, 15 months later. His step number one, my step number one, we kind of sort of agree on the same thing. You want to have, you pretty much want to have that you want to have that rainy day fund, right? This is going to be typically between six to 9 months of your expenses here. And an easy way to kind of figure this out is go pull your bank statements over the last 3 months and just do an average of all those expenses. And that's going to tell you what your average monthly expenses are. So go look at your bank statements. Like I said, do an average of the last 3 months, and that's going to tell you what your average is. Now, the reason why you have an emergency fund, and counter to what some people think, it's definitely not to get you rich. So, this doesn't need to be in some super high earning account. This shouldn't be in some, account that's going to get you rich. The whole goal of this account is to prevent something catastrophic from happening to you if something were to go bad, right? Like some of you had properties in Nashville that aren't booking anymore because of the hurricane, or you need a new roof on a property. That's why you have an emergency fund. The emergency fund doesn't exist to get you rich. It prevents a catastrophe from happening. Okay. Now, the whole 6 to 9 months thing, I think that's dependent upon your career, your position, to be honest. So for those of you, if you look at your job and you're in pretty high demand, pretty stable job to where you could find a new job by the end of the month, or if you got let go, you could find something else pretty quickly. You can afford to have a 6-month emergency fund. I have seen, and I've worked with people in the past where they're very pigeonholed, so to speak, in their career, or they've made it up a pretty high level to where if they were to go switch over to a different company, they likely won't earn the same amount of money as they were before. Okay, so this happens in some sort of career fields. If you're one of those career fields, you want to push your emergency fund closer to 9 months as opposed to 6 months. Okay. If you have a big family, a lot of child care expenses, things like that, you may want to think about pushing your emergency fund to 9 months. But somewhere between 6 to 9 months is pretty typical, pretty standard of where you want to be at. You would be surprised at how many of our clients, they don't have enough cash to, they $2 million, $3 million, $4 million net worth, but they don't have $30,000 cash available if something were to happen. That's really bad. It's a disaster waiting to happen. It's almost, I was watching this nuclear war show for whatever reason, and they would always mention it's not a matter of if, but when. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, but when is it going to happen that something goes bad, right? So just always keep that in mind. And it starts kind of with that emergency fund. We've had some clients actually liquidate some investments just to get a better cash position, which is not a bad idea. Because again, the whole point of it is not to make you rich. It's to prevent a disaster from happening. The second step, if you're writing them down and you're still with me, the second step is going to be to contribute to the employer match. Okay. So if you guys are working your W-2 and your employer matches your 401k or your retirement accounts, mathematically speaking, it makes sense to continue to get the employer match, assuming that your money will be fully vested. So for those that just started a new job, it's very important that you review your 401k documents and your plans to figure out when exactly your money gets vested. So for example, at Deloitte, when I was there, you had to stay there for at least 3 years in order for the money that they matched you to actually vest, meaning you keep it. So unfortunately, I didn't stay there for 3 years. So the money that they matched over that entire time it didn't vest, and I ended up having to give it all back to them, plus some more actually. I had to write a check back to Deloitte, but anyway, contribute to an employer match because mathematically speaking, it's it's free money. At the end of the day, it's free money, whether they match, 2%, 3%, 4%, up to 6%. I'm a big fan of just getting that match. Um, this could be a longer conversation too, as far as whether or not you do traditional or Roth. So if you guys aren't sure if you're in the traditional or Roth bucket, just small general rule of thumb is if your tax bracket is lower than 30%, it kind of makes sense to do Roth. If your tax bracket's higher than 30%, it kind of makes sense to do traditional now. Um, I have trainings and videos and resources on that. Can help you guys with that because that could be a whole hour long conversation. Always remember the portion that the employer matches you is always traditional. Okay. So even though you might be contributing Roth dollars, the portion that the employer puts in is going to be traditional. Okay. So contribute to the employer match. That's going to be free money, assuming your money will be fully vested. If you plan on leaving the company after a year and the money's not going to be vested, then I would say just skip this step because it's not free money because you're going to have to give it back to them. Step number three, and again, this is where I kind of defer from Dave Ramsey, is you're going to want to pay off high interest, non-income producing debt that's 7% or higher. So high interest, which I guess is defined as 7% or higher in my opinion. The reason why I say 7 instead of like 4 or 5 is if you really ask me, I think 4%, 5%, that's inflation right now. So if you have debt that's 4%, 4.5% or lower, really it's costing you nothing to borrow that because by the time you pay it back, that's just what inflation is. So it's like nobody really comes out ahead on that scenario. But if you have 7% or higher debt, that's not income producing debt. So that's not real estate debt. That's not business debt. You should make it a goal to try to pay off that higher interest debt. Car loans, credit cards, high interest student loans, HELOCs in some cases. I know some people are taking out HELOCs at a 10.5% rate. If you got cash sitting around, it may not be the worst thing to pay off that 10.5% HELOC because it's a guaranteed 10.5% return. So step number three, we want to start knocking down some of that high interest, non-income producing debt that's 7% or higher. Again, if it's income producing, you got cash flow tied to it. I'm fine with not paying that down. But anything that's like high interest, not income producing, it's got to go. It's definitely not a part of your financial picture. The step number four is going to be max out your Roth IRA / HSA. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the HSA account, that's a health savings account, and that's going to be dependent on your guys' jobs. So some people have an HSA plan, some people don't. Just depends on where they work. If you're self-employed, you can set up your own HSA. Every single person here should be able to set up a Roth IRA. Of course, most of us here are going to be making over the income limits to contribute directly to a Roth. So we have to do something called the backdoor Roth. Okay. We have videos in school about how to do a backdoor Roth IRA successfully. You can thank your government for the reasons why you have to do it that way. But what's pretty powerful here is the tax flexibility of these two accounts. Okay, we'll start with the Roth IRA. Every single dollar that you put into the Roth IRA that you put in, you can take that out at any point in time. So the Roth IRA kind of acts as like a smash the glass sort of emergency fund, if you will, because remember, whatever you contribute to the Roth IRA, you can always take that money out if you want it to. So we like the Roth IRA for retirement planning purposes and flexibility. The HSA is kind of like a Roth IRA on steroids. So the one thing that a Roth IRA doesn't allow you to get is a tax deduction when you contribute. So there's no tax deduction for a Roth IRA. There is for an HSA. What's cool about the HSA is there's no income limits for the HSA either. You can make 100,000 or you can make 1,000,000. You still can contribute to an HSA, which is cool. The HSA also comes out tax-free, assuming it's used for medical expenses. So there's a lot of flexibility. Both of these retirement accounts come out tax-free, which is great. We want tax-free sources of income, whether it's real estate, retirement accounts, etc. Those are the sources of income that we want. So that's why I kind of put it here at step number 4. Step number five. All right, this is where it gets interesting. So once you've kind of done one through four, which is kind of like the, training wheels, baby steps to investing, if you will. I think the next smart thing to do is to hit your financial independent. I guess I put independence, financial. I like the word, I used it twice. Um, Hit your financial independence number. I'm just checking to see who I need to mute. Sorry. Um, okay. Hit your financial independence number with your taxable brokerage account. Okay. So if this is the first time you're hearing of what a taxable brokerage account is, you need to go and watch some of the other podcasts, the other trainings that I've done on this account, because it's the taxable brokerage account is the number one least used account by real estate investors. And the taxable brokerage account serves as a bridge between whenever you want to retire and age 59 and a half. Because if you want to retire at say 45 or 50, how are you going to retire unless you have, a ton of rental properties cash flowing for you? How are you going to retire before 59 and a half? Because you need to be 59 and a half in order to access that retirement money. So having that money inside of a taxable brokerage account, your Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, whatever, having that money inside of the taxable brokerage account allows you to achieve financial independence earlier. Okay. So when I say by hit your FI number, is every single person here sort of has a number in their mind of, okay, if I had this amount of money going into retirement, I think I'll be okay. Right? Now, everybody's number is going to be a little bit different because it's going to be based on our, hopes and dreams. It's going to be based on our age. It's going to be based on our family size, et cetera. But let me just use my number for example. Like my number has always been $5 million. Okay. So $5 million, if I can retire at say 55 or 60 with $5 million, I'll be good. So that's my FI number. Okay. So I have a calculator that I just kind of put together that I'll share with you guys too, where you can calculate your own FI number yourself using the calculator that I'll share with you. And what this serves as is like, look, if everything else blows up on me, my businesses, my real estate, my crypto, my gambling habit, whatever, if everything blows up on me and I still have this amount of money at the end of the day, then I'll be okay. Okay. And this financial independence number is a monthly number. So for me, it's like $800 a month. $800 a month I have to invest from where I'm at now until when I want to retire. $800 a month is what I have to invest every single month in order to hit $5 million when I go to retire. Okay. And everybody's financial number is going to be a little bit of variation around this. And I'll show you guys the calculator in a second. But guess what? Once I've invested that number every single month, what do I do next? Invest into cash flow to buy your freedom quicker. So once I hit that financial independence number, let's say my number is $800 a month and I make $1,500 this month. That's above my discretionary spending, right? Well, that $700 difference, I'm taking that $700 and I'm using it to buy my freedom quicker. I'm using that to buy my next real estate property. I'm using that to buy my next business. I'm using that to pay down high interest debt. I'm using that to do all these other things because I know at the end of the day, I did what I needed to do in order to check off that FI number. Okay. Invest into cash flow to buy your freedom quicker. Again, this could mean rental properties, businesses, other assets, other investments, but you kind of do this in order because that's how it's meant to be done, is in this kind of order. Okay. The seventh step, I guess, because 7 sounds a lot better than 6, to be honest with you, but it also makes a lot of sense. We see this all the time where a lot of people, especially right now, we're in November 20th. A lot of investors, a lot of you are trying to get in, maybe get a property or an investment before the end of the year, and you don't. Okay. The worst thing you can do is rush to make an investment before the year end just to save money on taxes. Okay. And why? Because when you look at what you'll pay in taxes or you'll save in taxes or whatever, Compare that to the property losing money every single month because you made a bad investment. I would, and I'm a tax guy, right? But I'm here telling you, like, I would rather you pay taxes than have a property that's losing 2 grand a month, right? Or 3 grand a month because you didn't take the time to do the due diligence. You just kind of rushed to go and buy it, right? I've seen that happen personally to so many people that they buy a property, they say 50 grand, awesome, but the property loses $3,000 a month. They're right back in the same spot 14, 15 months later. Okay. So if that's you and you're coming up on the end of the year and you're like, man, I really need to do something with this money to help save on taxes, to help create, grow more wealth, that's where I say, hey, go back and max out that retirement account if you want, the 401k. Because remember before, all we were contributing to 401k before was the employer match. And then we went and hit our Roth IRA and HSA. And then we're hitting our taxable brokerage account, which is not a 401k or an IRA. Okay. Remember, taxable brokerage account is just regular stocks. You can set up an account today if you wanted to. But this is saying, okay, if all else fails and you can't go and buy another property or go and buy another business, think about putting that money back in to your 401k or IRA so you can let that grow for you and you can get a tax deduction. Because the two biggest killers of wealth, you guys got to remember this. Two biggest killers of wealth are what? Taxes and inflation. Taxes and inflation. So if I got 20 grand laying around, let's say I'm in a 42% tax bracket, 37% state, 5% Illinois I got to pay, right? I'm in a 42% bracket. I got 20 grand laying around. What do I do with it? Well, if I do absolutely nothing, I'm left with $12,000, right? Because the government's going to take 8,000 of that. Gone. Federal and state, gone. I just lost 8 grand, right? So if I do nothing, I'm left with 12, right? And if I don't do anything, that 12 grand that sits in the bank account, guess what? It's going to lose value to inflation. It's going to lose value to inflation. So after a year, that 12 grand is now worth 11, then it's worth 10, then it's worth 8, 9, whatever, right? So my best scenario is to invest the 20 grand into some kind of investment or asset, whatever you want to call it, that's going to help protect against taxes and it's going to help preserve value against inflation. Yeah, you can go buy a car for a business or you can go and buy this thing, but at the end of the day, if in 3 or 5 years your net worth is going to go down because of that purchase, I don't recommend you do it. Tons of people out there on these forums or influencers that tell you to go buy an expensive car, but the second you drive the car off the lot, it loses 20%, 30% of its value. I'd rather you take that same money that you were going to go and buy a car with and go put it in a retirement account. Get the tax deduction for it. Help preserve against inflation, right? Don't go, put a down payment on a car and then have a $600 a month payment. That's not building wealth either, right?